There's a storm coming. It's gotten real dark like, and the wind's blowing. I love a good thunderstorm. I feel like a thunderstorm is like the symphony or an orchestra in the sky putting on the best performance. Thunder, lightning, wind, rain. So let's see what happens. I was thinking about something recently that first amused me and then led to a kind of fascination or appreciation. And that was a superstition that I was introduced to as a kid called the evil eye. My mom wasn't a negative person. She was actually always looking on the positive side. She was always optimistic. And yet, she came from a culture rooted in these traditions, one of which were superstitions. So growing up, her beliefs amused me sometimes. They irritated me sometimes. They made me very frustrated at other times, especially when they interfered with something that I wanted to do. One of them, just a little thing that would always get to me, was this superstition that hair and fingernails should not be cut after 6 o'clock, or technically when it was dark. And this affected me because my cousin cut my hair, and he lived just down the street. So often, he could only do it when he was home from school, he was older than me, or home from his job, and I'd be leaving the house telling my mom, my cousin's going to cut my hair, and she'd say, no, you can't go now, it's dark. And I told you, you don't cut your hair after it's dark. So we would fight about this. And she always won. I always ended up, I didn't disobey her when I was small. So sometimes I would just say, well, I'm going over anyways, and fine, he won't cut my hair. And I'd go over and I'd tell him, like, I told you I was coming over, but you can't cut my hair because my mom said this or whatever. And I observed that my aunt, my cousin's mom, who was my mom's sister, she would hear this and she wouldn't say anything, but she would just smile. And I understood that, oh, it was interesting. My aunt didn't pay attention to these beliefs. She was aware of them, but she didn't observe them, and my mom did. And that, I wondered why that was the case. But these are the sorts of things that I learned about as a kid, as part of my culture. And this other superstition of the evil eye was something that I just thought was so silly, and my mom would bring it up every now and then. Often it would come up because of something that I was doing, and I would roll my eyes and not really pay attention to what she was saying. But as I grew up, learning that this superstition was widespread across the world and that many cultures observed it, it made me start to really think what the origin of this was and whether there was any truth to it. And in thinking about that and really looking at all sides of this, I discovered my own personal belief that actually there was a reason to pay attention to that, and actually maybe even change my ways. So what is the superstition? The superstition of the evil eye is that outward expression of success, happiness, prosperity can potentially elicit bad luck, tragedy, financial loss, ruin from observances by people in the form of envy or jealousy, or even unintentionally from excessive praise or any kind of very intense admiration. And on a very kind of detailed level, as I learned about this superstition, it was in our household, especially concerning my mom, it was this very potential negative energy that came from the initial moment of a person's reaction that was close to you, especially when it was intense. So something's revealed, and then the response from the person learning this revelation is, ah, that gasp, that ah, it is bad sometimes. Because, and here's the subtlety, here are the layers of this superstition, which I learned, like, it took a long time for me to learn about what this was all about. Pulling back the layers, what was revealed was that very initial visceral response from an onlooker, someone that's actually looking, could be laced with envy or jealousy, and that negative feeling that even the person who's reacting might not know they have, if that's in there, it draws negative energy to the whole thing and can make it just fall apart or not happen. Well, where, for example, what? Well, for example, all through a person's life, like a wedding, something that is full of potential, this event on this day, could elicit envy from people that are there. They're kind of like jealous of what's happening and who it's happening between. And at a function like a wedding, where the people that are involved, the bride and the groom and their parents or their very close family, should be hoping for the best for these two, that any kind of negative energy can have a role in playing, making this not a successful union. That's the belief. And where it applied to me was, so now I'm going to bring this home to how I experienced this. When I was growing up, it was getting real dark. So when I was growing up, I was always dreaming. And my dreams led to outlandish endeavors. And I was always trying different things. And some of them were very close to home, like building a chicken coop and keeping chickens despite it being illegal in our area. And others were potentially life-altering things, like getting an agent and then trying out for movie roles and TV roles, big movie roles and TV roles, and going for auditions and flying to LA to be tested at a network in front of all of the executives. I was doing stuff like that when I was really young, like 15, 16 years old. And the chicken coop thing was even younger. And in all of these endeavors, I had a really big mouth. I would talk about it to anyone that would listen. I was attention seeking. Maybe I still am. But I just couldn't help myself. And I would get so excited, and people would come over, and I would start talking, and sometimes they would ask, what are you doing? And I'd say, oh, I'm going to do this, and this thing's coming up, and I'm doing this, and applying to university. I'm applying to this school, and Harvard, and Yale. And my mom would chastise me when we were alone, especially when those endeavors didn't work out. And sometimes it wasn't something like applying to university and then getting a rejection letter. Sometimes it was something like my chicken coop and showing baskets full of eggs to people that would come over, like, look at the eggs. And then the response being from people, neighbors even, oh my gosh, look. And then coincidence that a day later or a week later, at night, a raccoon gets into the chicken coop and kills all my chickens. These were the sorts of things that would happen, and you could say it's coincidence, or you could say maybe it's not, but that my mom, coming from her culture, would say, this is why you don't boast, and this is why you don't elicit that. Don't elicit the evil eye. And I, like in the chicken coop situation, which did happen, I would just say, you're being silly. Just stop. Stop that. And she would say, no, it's a real thing. And this, she never let go of that. When I would go for auditions, and some of these things I wanted so badly, and I would hope for the parts, and I would memorize the lines, and I would do my best and tell all my relatives and all my friends, and then I wouldn't get them. And she would say, stop telling everybody what you're doing. You don't know who doesn't really want the best for you. And then she would stop. She wouldn't go on. But this was something that she really tried to enforce in our lives, and I just wouldn't listen. And as I got older and started seeing mention of the evil eye, I think my first revelation that it wasn't just in our culture was because I saw this movie when I was in my teens, was watching the movie version of the play Fiddler on the Roof. And when the mother chastises her daughter and sort of clucks, she goes, like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to incur the evil eye? And then she spits. I thought, wow, this isn't, oh, there's some thunder. This isn't just my mom. This isn't just my culture. Wow. And the reason why I was thinking about this recently was because of how far it has permeated culture, even Western culture. The fact that even an emoji exists that is the evil eye, and I see this emoji constantly in social media, it amuses me. It amuses me that this thing that I was so averse to, and it irritated me even hearing about it, is something that is so widely viewed across the world in culture. And that got me thinking, and this is not thinking about this recently, it got me thinking kind of as a late teenager, early or young adult, when things wouldn't work out. And when I didn't achieve something, I would, in my states of devastation or upset, I couldn't help think about what my mom said about not sharing the things that are the most important to me with everybody. A side note, these superstitions are usually relegated to the female roles in the home. I never heard my dad or my uncles or male relatives talk about this stuff. And when I encountered it, it was always from females. I remember, it still makes me laugh and it warms my heart because I actually think it's sweet. When I had been in Mean Girls, a year later, or not even a year later, a few months after the movie came out, I went to London to take a course at the Actors Centre in Covent Garden. And I was staying with two of my aunties, an older one and a younger one, like a sort of a grandma one, and then one who was an aunt, like my mom's age. And my aunt had a daughter. So it was three women in a house in Surrey. And I loved all of them. I love all of them. And so I was staying with them, and we got along like peas in a pod. I would cook dinner sometimes, they would cook dinner, we would always eat together. And during the day, because I hadn't been in London for a while, I visited many relatives. I would go from house to house visiting people. And it was right after Mean Girls. So there was a lot of, oh, wow, you were just in that film. Let's take some pictures together. And making the rounds and going from place to place and receiving congratulations and all of that. There was one afternoon where I was with one of my aunties that I was staying with. We were going into Marks and Spencer's, and something just came over me, and I started throwing up. I had to run outside to throw up in a trash can. And there was a point where I just couldn't even stand up. So I was sitting down and I felt miserable. And my auntie found me and we got on the bus and we went back home, and I got into bed. And I don't know what this was. I think I was feverish. The weather wasn't cold. It was in the summer. And so I was in my tiny little bed. And when I sort of woke up and came to in the evening, I heard them whispering downstairs. They were kind of and they were talking in muffled tones. I thought, what's going on down there? And then one of them called me and they said, "Are you up?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm up." They said, "Will you come downstairs? Can you come downstairs?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine to come downstairs." So I went down the stairs, and at the foot, I can see it I could just see exactly that picture. I would turn the corner, I'm walking down the stairs, and both aunts are there, and they have a tray, and the tray had a lamp, like an oil lamp, little clay or brass oil lamp, some limes, and some dried red chilies. And both of them, very matter-of-factly and sternly, said, "Stand here." And so they lit the lamp. They did sort of something around me with the lamp. And then they said, "Tupu." And I was like, "What do you mean tupu?" Tupu means spit. And then she pointed to the limes and the chilies. She just said, "Spit on this." So I did what they said. I kind of spat on it. And then they aggressively opened the front door, threw the limes and the chilies out of the front door, and slammed the front door and said, "Okay, you can go back upstairs now." And I knew what they were doing. They were taking physical action to try to pull off the evil eye. Because to them, the only explanation of how this had happened was that me going from house to house, being praised by all these people that I had never met before or had met many years ago, elicited the evil eye. And they needed to remove it. And the very interesting thing was when I went upstairs, I freshened up and I was fine. I was able to eat dinner. This thing that came over me, maybe it was just food poisoning, was very short-lived. It was that afternoon into the evening. Anyways, that is how this has been in my life. And I have never forgotten that, and I've thought about it a lot. And I had a sort of a discovery and an appreciation for the root of this, and where, yes, I actually do agree with it. And here's where I believe there is a practical aspect to observing this superstition of the evil eye. When you share your most intense hopes, desires, dreams, goals, ambitions with people, most people will listen, or they're interested, mildly interested, varying levels of interest, but they don't really care. It is simply fodder for conversation. "Hey, what have you been up to? Hey, what's new? Hey, anything new?" These are the sorts of things that in this part of the world are used as a salutation or a greeting. I'm walking around the city and I'm bumping into people that are acquaintances, not friends that I have seen or know superficially as acquaintances, and that's the sort of thing. "Hey, what's new?" What's the answer to that of what's new? I mean, if I'm working on something that is really a passion of mine, and that is a hope and a desire and a goal, do I share that with someone that I don't really know? Just a simple conversation. And the answer is no. And to me, I'm reminded of the superstition of the evil eye, because the reason you shouldn't share this stuff widely, and this is truly my personal belief, is not necessarily because it might elicit negative energy in the form of envy or jealousy, but because when you share verbally these things, you are diminishing your own potential to really work on it and to make it happen. And there's a fine line here, because I do think saying things out loud help to materialize the goal and make it real. I think I need to take a pause, because I think it's so dark in here that I need a light source. Because that storm's a coming. That storms are brewing. I don't know if you're going to be able to even see me. Oh, Vermont lanterns. There. That's better, I think. So, getting back to the conversation at hand. You want something. You're hoping for something. You're dreaming of something. And you're so excited about it that you can't help but talk about it to everyone. Anyone that will listen. Here's and I'm speaking from sort of personal experience. I don't think this is not a blanket statement that applies to everybody. But every time you talk about it, I believe that you're hypothetically living it through in your head. I want to do this and I want to do this, and hopefully I can get here, and hopefully this will happen, and then this will happen. And you kind of exhale. And in talking about it, you're imagining it, and you're imagining it happening. And in a very small way, you are imagining the good feelings that will come from achieving this goal. And each time you do that, I believe it diminishes the energy that you have to actually do the work. And over the years, I've realized that I think it's better to be conservative and reserved verbally, to not share that publicly, and to instead use that energy to do the work, to make it happen. Keep it a private thing. Keep it close to your heart. And maybe only share it with the people that are the closest to you, the people that you know really have your best interest at heart and really want the best for you. And those are the people that you talk about these things, because maybe they'll have ideas of how you can make it happen, and maybe they will have real words of support that will get you there because they know you so well. I don't believe that these are the sorts of things that should come up in casual conversation. That's one side of this, is that repeated discussion of this stuff diminishes the energy and the intensity you have to actually do the work to make it happen. Number two, the other side of this that I believe is very practical is that the more you share this with people, the more people you talk to about the things that are really important to you, when they don't happen, you have to relive them each time someone brings it up. Hey, remember that audition you were going out for that you really wanted? Whatever happened with that? Oh, I didn't get it. Oh, that's too bad. That's usually how that ends. So for them, they brought it up because they care, or enough to remember and think, oh, it's considerate to ask. I know he really was hoping for that. Whatever happened? Curious. So they ask you, and then when you say, oh, it didn't really work out, you're reliving. I mean, you know, you're not going to, some do, you're not going to complain to no end about how sad you are that you didn't get it, but you're kind of reliving it in a way by going through the disappointment of even just saying, well, I didn't get it. And then every time that happens, with every person you talked to that remembers enough to ask you, hey, whatever happened with that audition, you're bringing it up again. Whereas the fewer people you tell, fewer people will even know to ask whatever happened with that audition. And if you told nobody, then when you don't get the audition, you deal with the grief of the loss and you move on. Nobody knows. This is something that I have really tried to adapt into my life. This way of sharing. Don't overshare. Many people, and then going back to the actual superstition or the belief, I mean, in my culture and in many cultures, I shouldn't just say my culture, there is a genuine belief in energy. And energy is a real thing. I mean, even in the world of science, energy is what is often measured. The energy from light, the energy from pressure, the energy from moisture. And the energy that exists between people is, in my culture, a very real thing. And not everybody, unfortunately, is strong enough to hear about your good news or your potential for success and to truly wish you the best without self-reflection of, oh, I wish I was in that position. And it's really, it applies to so many things, even just going on a date. You're excited about going on a date with somebody and you tell all your friends and everybody knows about it, and then you go on the date and it doesn't work out. So, the evil eye, the superstition, and also the practical side. My thoughts, my ruminations. And we'll just wait for the storm. Okay, I have a PS, something that I forgot, which I forgot to mention, which is fascinating, a fascinating part of this, and kind of an integral part of this practice, or the superstition of the evil eye, is thwarting the evil eye. In all of these cultures that believe in this superstition, there are means of trying to deflect it or thwart it, and they're very interesting to me. So, in many cultures, it's in the form of an amulet. There's that pendant that's used in Judaism as well as in Islam of the hand, and it's called different things in the different cultures. I think in one of them, in Judaism, it's the hand of Miriam, which is a pendant that has an eye in the very center of it. It's an amulet. And there are amulets that are often in the form of something that you're hanging on your body or hanging in your home. In Sri Lanka, there's a sort of a mask, like a dragon-like mask that's hung at the entrance of many homes to thwart the evil eye of people that are entering the home. But the methods exist in so many different forms. In Hinduism, one of the things that's done to a newborn baby is they put a black mark made from a kind of resin that usually is heated up, and it comes from, I think that it's like a treacle or something. It comes from a palm tree or the coconut tree or something. But it's like a shiny black substance that's not toxic, it's non-toxic, and it's put as a mark on the baby's face, usually on the forehead. So in Hinduism, the mark on the forehead is usually the third eye when it's in red, vermilion. But in this purpose, for a newborn baby, it's a big black dot. And the intention is that people that have a first glance of the newborn baby, they're seeing something unsightly. So because this is the belief, is that that first intentional internal response from the onlooker is the thing that holds the potential for incurring this malevolence. And if that initial glance is thwarted by something unsightly, then it's less likely to actually have an impact. So if someone looks at the baby that is otherwise really beautiful and that would otherwise elicit a gasp of, oh, what a beautiful child, if they look at the baby and the first thing is this unsightly black mark, that's a good thing. So that's how often this works itself into the practice of thwarting the evil eye in things like this. It's even done with livestock, like protecting livestock by putting something in the field that is unsightly to the onlookers. Something I forgot to mention, an important fact. Interesting.